register this move?
Yes.
If you haven't signed the register, we'd appreciate it if you'd do so. Roll call the board.
Ms. Dong,
Here.
Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Jaramillo, Ms. Quintero,
Present.
Mr. Crouch,
Present. Is there a move to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted. Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have governing board comments. Ms. Stone?
Yes, I'm just really excited about all the different activities that are going on and have happened. We've had some incredible activities. One of them here in the auditorium there, where we were able to acknowledge Cuco del Cid again and name the auditorium after Cuco del Cid, and that was just beautiful. I mean, it was real personal. I think it gave the opportunity for closure on some of the things that were, the sadness of losing Cuco. I could tell that it was really an incredible experience for the alumni also that came in, as well as the students that were his students this year as his last group of students. So that was a really nice experience. Last night was fabulous when we had the Native American senior banquet. It's always one of my favorite things at the end of the year to go to, and I really enjoyed it. Every year they change it up a little bit. The blessings done a little bit different, and this time we had 3 people doing the blessings, and it was great because that gave us all a chance to get blessed too. So it was neat. Every year it's just packed with parents and families and aunts and uncles and grandparents, and that was like that again this year. It's just the next few days for the graduations are just really memorable and great to have all the family and the community here.
Ms. Quintero?
Well, I'm not going to reiterate because that was perfect. And I just, this morning at Santa Clara, the Cheyenne Kindness Project was at Santa Clara, and about 90 kids got to enjoy the kindness packages, and they were like off the wall, excited, best day ever.
That's cute.
And then they got to go outside and field day, it was just like, it was a great day for the kids and the elementary for the field day, and so they had a great time. Thank you.
Well, again, like Ms. Stone said, the events that are going on are fantastic. The renaming of the auditorium, the Native American. And then this week, we get to really celebrate what we're here for. The graduations, the promotions, especially the graduations at all 3 high schools. So we had the first one this evening, one tomorrow night, and then the night after. And that's really celebrates why we're here. It's for the children. Mr. Holmes?
Sure, I'll do our superintendent's report. Had a lot of great features in the paper more recently, starting specifically with one of our graduates who, make sure they can. Okay. File's not ready. Everyone look at this sheet.
It's there.
There you
Ta-da.
There we go.
There you go.
I can't even see with my glasses on, so I got like size 24 font on here. We'll start with Armando Alvarez, who beats the odds. This young man, Armando Alvarez's story was featured on Sunday's Arizona's Daily Star. The one-time homeless youth, Armando, was able to beat the odds thanks to support from teachers and counselors like Patricia Garcia, who's at the right, one of our counselors here at Sunnyside High School. She's our SUSD homeless liaison, Araceli Mendoza, and entire support team from our Youth on Their Own. Armando made ends meet as a quinceañera planner, and one day he hopes to own his own events venue. Armando is one of the 19 graduating seniors at Sunnyside High School who were at one time considered homeless and supported by our Youth on Their Own program. I could call him my sobrino, so every time I see him, he says, Tío. I met him a few years back ago where he was here from Hermosillo, so I'm glad to see he's done well.
Yes.
We also have our Sunnyside students use computer modeling to apply environmental science concepts. So Sunnyside is partnering with the University of Arizona to launch the Comp Hydro project. It's an innovative curriculum that teaches students how to use computer models to understand local water problems. The Comp Hydro project brings together place-based environmental science with computer and quantitative science, computational, and quantitative science. The project is a multi-state initiative in Arizona, Colorado, Maryland, and Montana. In Arizona, the curriculum is set in the context of modeling groundwater containment from the Tucson Airport Remediation Project. The project is funded by the National Science Foundation. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of study some of the local issues, historical issues, and current environmental issues that are really important. We also have Roberto Martinez coming home to Sunnyside. A few months on our consent agenda, we were able to approve our new mariachi instructor. Sunnyside School District is proud to announce the return of Maestro Roberto Martinez as the new director for Mariachi Los Diablitos de Sunnyside. He's a graduate of Sunnyside High School. Roberto will roam the halls once again as he begins his contract on July 1, but starts probably towards the end of July of 2018. Martinez, a Tucson native and renowned master of the vihuela, most recently served as musical instructor at the Calmeca Academy of Fine Arts and Dual Language in Chicago, and as director of mariachi curriculum at the Mariachi Heritage Foundation. Like many notable mariachi performers of the American Southwest, Roberto Martinez traces his roots to Los Changuitos Feos de Tucson and is perhaps best known for his 33-year residency with Mariachi Cobre in Walt Disney World in Florida. An intern with Mr. Crouch, I think, back in college, if I'm not.
Many years ago.
Many years ago as well. So great to have him back. I think it's kind of that great continuation of what Maestro Cuco del Cid left for us. I think it was a wonderful ceremony to bring closure for some of our students and the beginning of a new era for our mariachi program here in Sunnyside at the new Cuco del Cid Auditorium. So it's going to be wonderful. And we had a surprise guest drop in Esperanza Elementary School. So if everyone was really freaked out that there was a police helicopter landing at Esperanza, they descended onto the playground of our Esperanza Elementary on May 15th to celebrate the winners of the Crime Reported, Don't Support It campaign. Students from Mr. Scott's 5th grade class submitted the winning slogan as part of a school-wide competition sponsored by the Tucson Police Department. I want to thank the Tucson Police Department for giving our kids such an awesome experience. So you can see some of the pictures there.
Do we know what the slogan is that they,
What's that?
was that the slogan?
That was the slogan. The slogan is crime, report it, don't support it. So I thought it was wonderful. There's a wonderful young man who just signed to Nebraska, track and field and cross country from the day at Sunnyside. So great young man. Celebrate him. Well, thank you. That concludes our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Do we have any calls about these birds? Next on the agenda is, we have no recognitions tonight. Next is the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Under general functions, section A, 2018-19 salary schedules and salary adjustments. Mr. Encinas and Dr. Burton.
I'll go ahead and start while we're pulling up the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Holmes.
Because I think because these are wonderful people that did all the work, but just to frame the kind of discussion in terms of the structure of this. So, as we're aware, as part of the new proposal that was passed by legislators at the state level and our governor, there was more funds that were allocated to increase teacher salaries. That was really the premise of that. There's 3 funding buckets that were, that have been approved. And I want to explain them a little bit in detail before we kind of go through how we're using the funds. The intent of the funds, the first funding source is really to increase teacher salaries. And that was a funding source that roughly amounted to about $4.2 million for teacher compensation. Those are new dollars that are coming into the district as part of the new proposal. Again, the intent is to really work at a 10% increase, or a 9% increase plus the 1% that was given last year to account for a 10% increase in teacher salaries. And teacher, by definition, is defined someone that's working with kids in the classroom. Our in-district definition are those that are currently on our certified salary schedule. And those include currently librarians, our counselors, and all our other teachers. That includes music, PE, fine arts teachers, those that are working with kids. The other funding source that was approved, that was new dollars, is a funding called District Additional Assistance, or DA, or formerly known as capital dollars. That money, as a total dollar amount, was roughly about $1.5 million that our district is getting. Now, what was guidance that was given to us is that can be used for all your capital needs for the year, but they can be used also for salary increases. At this stage, we worked with our interspace bargaining unit and decided that we would devote half of the funds to deal with the minimum wage increase for our classified employees, and to deal with some of the compression that has occurred as a result of that. So it's about $750,000 dedicated to classified employee adjustments, and the other $750 roughly going into our capital deal with our day-to-day needs. The third funding bucket really is monies that were received as a result of Prop 123, which is our inflation dollars. That is roughly about $66 per student in weighted ADM, which ends up being roughly about $1.3 million. So again, 3 buckets, 2 that are new funding sources, that's the teacher compensation funds and the district additional system funds. 1 that's a former, fairly new funding source, which is our inflation funds. So working with our interest-based bargaining unit, we all agreed that we would ensure that those 3 funding sources would go to support new salary schedules and support our certified compression and minimum wage, and work with our PNT and administrative staff as well. What the figures that we're going to present to you briefly include the step commitment that we have for all employees, which has traditionally been funded over the last 2 years by our inflation funding. Okay, so I don't want to confuse all those, but I want to make sure the inflation funding has been part of the general conversation across districts, and I don't want to lose that funding source in the conversation around teacher salaries, because that continues to be a funding source that will need to be used for maintaining step increases along the way as we move forward. So that being said, the breakdown, let me stay up for a little bit. The breakdown for teachers, if I include the step increase, is roughly about 12%. So I think I really believe what we're bringing forward to the governing board is genuinely in alignment with what the intended use of those monies were, which was a 12%, a 10% increase in teacher salaries. Because we are committed to the 2%, roughly 2% step increase, it ends up being more of a 12% increase from that funding source for teachers, which in our definition are librarians, counselors, and all teachers included in the certified salary schedule. And I'm going to show you that right now. The other one is a little bit more complex with the classified hourly, in that we have an increase in minimum wage starting on January 1st, 2009 to $11 an hour. So what we're asking to approve is 2 salary schedules. One that maintains people who are at 1050 and increases all other employees who have been compressed on the salary schedule effective July 1st. And then the second one is what it would look like when everyone else is adjusted because of minimum wage. So it's two separate salary schedules. It's included in the total request today in terms of budget. ends up roughly being a 7% increase to our classified employees. Okay, two salary scale, one beginning July 1st, one beginning January 1st, once minimum wage goes up to 11. Again, the total of adjusting by 7% to include our topped-out classified employees. So anyone that's outside of the salary schedule will also get the benefit of the 7% increase, which is the step that we committed to before, plus the 5% adjustment, so that there's a fair distribution for those that are topped out. There are people, because of the salary schedule got readjusted, who are topped out that went back on. Okay, so that doesn't reflect that same increase because they just returned back on because the salary schedule got expanded in terms of dollar amounts because of the compression, dealing with compression. And when I talk about compression, just to be real clear to the audience and those that are listening, we are not looking at a dollar per dollar increase on minimum wage. And by dealing with compression, we are maintaining integrity with the salary schedule or the hourly schedule that was adopted by the governing board by the compensation study, meaning between grades, we continue to maintain a 5% increase between the grades going down, so everyone's a different grade, and maintain a 2% increase within the steps on the classified salary schedule. That still means that we have a large group in that minimum wage increase that have pretty much compressed those grades into one. Notwithstanding people that are further down in the years of service that's maintained 2% past that 11. And I'll show you a visual of that as well. The last categories are professional non-teaching. Those are instructional coaches. Those are our school psychologists. Those are our school social workers. And admin are looking at a 3% increase. So that's inclusive of the 2% step that we committed to this year, an additional 1% using some of the remaining monies off of the inflation dollars that we were able to increase at least that subgroup by another 1%. So again, everyone in the organization would be receiving increases, 12% for those certified on the certified salary schedule, 7% roughly for our classified. And I always say roughly because it just depends where you're at, but roughly 12, 7, and then 3% for our PNT admin is really what we're asking for approval this evening. If you don't mind, can you pull the salary schedule so we show a little bit of visual? We'll start with the certified so you get an idea what, these are all Javier's salary schedules. That's a new term nickname we're calling them, Javier schedules. Because Javier's the master behind trying to create the spreadsheets. So him and Hector.
And Mr. Holmes, just for the audience, IBB is our interest-based bargaining group, which represents all the three
All the groups.
associations for the teachers, the classified, and the administrators.
That's correct. And so that unit collectively have agreed to this proposal that's being presented to you. But as a visual, this represents the visual representation that we will post on our website, because there is a state requirement for us to do so, to show what last year's salaries would look like, what the new salaries would look like, and what that percent increase would result in. We have broken out and will continue to bring forward to the governing board year by year a broken out salary schedule for approval, because it is important for us to improve the 301 monies every year. I feel like by blending the two buckets like we have had in the past creates some issues with really just sustainability. Sustainability, and when there's good times are good and there's more income, it's just harder to make these one-off adjustments when it's all compressed into one salary. So from moving forward, you will see the buckets separated, when in the past you would see that 20% and 40% and M&O salary all in one total compensation represented in that green. So we will still on the contract show teachers, anyone on this side, what that would look like, but we will separate them out now from moving on, so that in case that money changes, it's reflected on here and there's clarity around where those buckets come from. So for this year, and why this is important to separate this year we were able to increase bucket, the 20% base bucket, and I use the term bucket because that's what we use for 301, by $150. And we were able to increase the 40% menu bucket by $500 for a total of $650 increase in those two buckets combined. So that new Contractual compensation is now representative of a base salary increase of 10% and the increases in the menu buckets. And now you can see what each teacher at each particular step would make. So a first-year teacher in our district will be guaranteed $37,218 for the 18-19 school year, compared to roughly about 32 when I combine buckets. And
32.
33,634.
3364?
33,634.
634.
It's going up to 37,218.
Yeah. So the other piece I want to point out that's going to be approved also this afternoon is that bucket, performance-based bucket, which is the $301, which we're asking on the next agenda item. That is going up by $2,200 from the
From
pre,
2960
Yeah.
to 4,400.
Yeah.
2960 to
400,
4,400.
yeah.
So roughly about $2,200 increase in that bucket. We'll discuss it a little bit later, but as you can tell, that increase also represents a significant potential maximum. And we say potential maximum because to earn the full dollars, you have to, receive a high rating on your evaluation, complete and submit your Exhibit G, and your scores, your performance scores have to be in that zone that actually allows you for full compensation. And so that, when you add those up and you look at just the distribution across, you see the base was increased by 10%. You see now the step plus the base roughly ends, it's a movement of a roughly 12.5%. So that's just what would be a person that moved from one step plus their increase in the base is roughly a 12.5 all the way to 12.4 increase. And then if I include all the increases in the buckets, performance and the steps, you're looking at roughly a 15% increase for teachers next year. That includes the base increase of 10%, the step increase, and the 301 buckets increases. And we have these broken down for Masters Plus and PhD. Any questions on this salary scale before I show the classified?
Looks good, Mr.
Okay. Classified is a little bit more complex, but I'll try my best to explain this. This would be what would go into effect starting July 1st. As you can see, everything in yellow are people that are had moved to the 1050, and you can see how those different grades, they represent different positions in our district, right? From crossing guards to teacher assistants, and they're all graded at different levels. Right now, those people have been moving along as we've been increasing minimum wage. What Mr. Encinas has been able to do, along with Mr. Baca, is maintain integrity of the 1 through 18. So there's a 2% increase for those past the minimum wage. Does that make sense? So you can still see if I'm at step 8 and if I'm at grade 8, step 2, moving forward, you'll see you maintain 2% differential over the steps, which keeps integrity with the schedule for hourly.
After the minimum wage, in other words.
Correct.
From here to here, it's not 10, might not be, but from here to here, here to here, it's maintained at 2%. And the schedule really has not changed from here up. It'll be basically the same till December 31st. Now, January 1st, then, what has changed though, from here down, we increase it by 5% and have a new 11, grade 9 salary, which is 5% more.
Yeah, so that grade 9, 1155 is representative of the change after the $11 happens in January 1st. We just are front-loading this for employees who have been compressed the last couple of years. So we're giving them the benefit of dealing with the compression now and not waiting to adjust the whole salary, the whole hourly schedule in January. So right now, we'll deal with everyone. As you can see, once it goes to 11 in January 1st, you can see there's still 1155 starting for grade 9. That was already dealt with in July 1st, so people can benefit from a year-long decompression of that salary schedule.
Then come January 1st, we deal with compression as a result of $11. So everything else above here. That's
It still maintains integrity with the 2%. It's just what's happened though is those grades 1 through 8 have been compressed, and it's going to be hard for us to do a one-to-one matchup. I think the way we've defined dealing with compression is maintaining integrity of the compensation study that was made by keeping the 5% differential between the grades and the 2% between the steps.
We're gonna have a similar issue in 1920.
1920, it
Yes.
jumps a whole dollar.
Whole dollar.
2020.
Oh, that's why 19.
2020,
2020.
January
Yeah,
1st.
but it's-
school year
Oh, I see.
1920.
Yeah,
I see what
yes.
you're saying. I see.
2020, yeah.
Yes, school year
I thought we
1920.
were going back in time.
No.
Like, wow.
No.
The school year 1920.
Yeah.
I missed what you were saying.
Sorry.
No, we're good. I think I want to spend a little more time just because it is very complex. When you look at all these numbers, I think a lot of thought was given to this so that we make sure we can decompress folks. Again, it's not a full decompression with a dollar-to-dollar matchup. That would cost us easily, probably to deal with the whole scale, about $7 million. Right now, this alone, dealing with this, is about $1.7 million increase to our budget to work through compression and the increase of minimum wage for this year's cost alone.
And we have about 30 people that are beyond step 18. And all the grades up.
Yeah, on this side.
We have about 30 individuals that are beyond that.
And
It's float.
and we'll adjust them
Yeah.
by the same percentage increase.
Yeah.
No, effective
July 1.
July 1.
July 1?
Yeah.
You just didn't have a big enough paper to.
No,
No,
they just
Yeah.
kind of float on the edge.
Yeah, our
because
sal-
they go beyond.
Like, when we adopted this,
Yeah.
we basically said 18 is the highest
Highest
step
step.
for each one of those, and people just have topped out at that point.
Well, we've dealt with this in the past as far as the compression is concerned, and I really appreciate this, because I know sometimes in the past, we had a hard time with that, and we would, get stuck and get caught leapfrogging people, that were brand new versus people that had been loyal, and been here for a long
Correct.
time. So really appreciate, I know this was not easy at all, and I appreciate whoever did this in your office, Hector.
Both of them, they did it, yeah.
Javier, thanks, because I know in the past it's been a real difficult time, getting it done, so you're the team here.
It's a good team.
Thanks, team, for doing this and making sure that it was equitable to everybody.
It's imperfect, and when it comes to with these, but I think it's a fair way of looking at it.
Nothing that money can't solve.
That's right.
Yeah.
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 There are, I would be remiss if I didn't just mention this. There are some P&Ts that are former teachers in the classroom that because of the adjustments with the teacher wage are going to be looked at in conjunction with SEA to look if anyone's losing money as they're going back, whether those P&T positions will need to be adjusted as well, such as instructional coaches and ABSSs and AIs. Those are the three that come from the classroom that now when you start looking at a 20% increase potential over 3 years
Yeah.
are being revisited as whether or not we would bring something forward. And they're going to be meeting over the course of the summer to bring forth a proposal once they do their analysis.
Could they move back to the classroom?
Yes,
Yes, they
absolutely.
can.
Absolutely,
Yes, they can.
absolutely.
But even then, I would imagine you'd have to try to figure out and adjust that.
That's
so-
correct. We'd have to look at their years in the P&T plus their years from the classroom and see how that combines into a salary.
Any questions? Mr. Hurtado, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just want to reaffirm what Mr. Holmes stated, that I think based on the amount of funds that we've been allotted, and the projections, we're well in line to be able to fund this and sustain it, at least until next year. So I'm very glad and appreciative of the fact that we're able to do this for our employees. It's long overdue, and it's by no means the ultimate solution. I think we've got some ways to go, and hopefully we'll be able to address it in the future.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented the 2018-2019 salary schedule and salary adjustment.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Hadamiel,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. And again, I want to thank the staff, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Macias, and the staffs for doing this. I know there's a lot of work into it, and I think it's going to be well appreciated by the community.
Thank you.
Ditto.
Next on the agenda is Classroom Site Fund, CF/301, proposal for 2018-19. Dr. Favela, Dr. Burton.
Thank you, President Crouch, governing board members, and Superintendent Holmes. I just realized, I guess this PowerPoint is a little retro with the chalk.
Yeah. That old retro.
I think we need to change our PowerPoint.
I thought they were birthday candles.
So, we need it for consistency, certainly. Dr. Bergman and I are here to speak about the Classroom Site Fund, CSF 301, for next year and asking for your approval. I'm not sure if Ms. Martinez is here. Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll ask you also if you could comment, and feel free to come up and join us, you know. So that we can all talk about this. And so I'll let Dr. Bergman provide, and Lisa to speak about this more. I just wanted to walk you through the pieces of it in that it comes from bucket 2. There are several sections of it, what comes off the top, and then what part is involved with the category, the Exhibit G, and then how that gets passed is through, has to be 70% of the eligible staff member need to vote. And so if for some reason we had not obtained that, then the governing board then decides whether to move forward with it or not. So, so as in prior years, it's made up of 2 parts, and Dr. Bergman, maybe I'll let you address it since you work with this, with the evaluation committee and with IBB, and then we can talk a little bit about the data, Lisa, so jump in as you need to, okay?
Well, what's
Thank
nice
you.
is Lisa Hernandez sits on the district evaluation committee. She has for the last 3 years. Yeah,
4 years, yeah.
has it been 4? 4 years, and so has worked hand in hand on the process that we go through to determine how we're going to establish the recommendations for distributing the pay for performance monies. And as you know, we have to take right off the top of bucket 2, 33% of the funds that are allocated. This year that money went up, which was really, really nice. When Hector informed me, I was so excited that we got to take this event to the evaluation committee and work with that additional funds. So teachers receive pay for performance according to the Sunnyside rubric. The rubric is one part of how they receive the money. Their final classification on Exhibit D is that chunk of money that they determine that they get. We changed this year. Used to we have it broken down into 3, but because of the feedback that we are hearing from teachers and evaluation, what was coming forward, and to get everybody to kind of take a breath, we combined the effective and the highly effective to receive, if you fall in either one of those classifications, you will receive $1,400. That's an increase from the $900 and the $630 that they get this year. So that's a nice jump for them. And also the developing, the committee really believes, and Lisa jump in anytime, that our developing teachers need incentives. They need incentives to want to learn the rubric, put those pieces in place in their classroom. So they will be looking at $600 in the developing areas. And this payment is typically paid in August. We've done that for the last few years, and we have that projected for 18-19 as well. Can you move it? Want to say anything?
No.
Okay.
I am an SEA member of the advocacy chair. I'm also been working with Dr. Bergman on the evaluation committee, and we take all of this very seriously on the evaluation committee. I mean, we're in there talking for hours about this, so we did not take this lightly. It was a consensus. So we do approve of it.
Okay, and then that remaining 67 out of bucket 2, We then decide a 70-30 split, and this can be very confusing to some people. We have this bucket, we take 33% off the top, goes for their rubric payment. Now we're looking at the remaining 70-30. 70% is completion and submission of their Exhibit G. Everybody who is on the certified salary schedule completes an Exhibit G. And you're working hand in hand with your site leadership on developing goals on how you want to move your students that you are on your roster forward. And we've done this for the last 2 years, the completion of Exhibit G, and we're going to continue with that for our 3rd year. And then we look at the growth that you project for yourself. Teachers have to pick they pre-screen their kids, pre-test their kids. They put into place different strategies throughout the year, and then they post-test, and they look at the difference on the increase that they made to a measure. Did their kids move forward in whatever BLL or math that they chose? And that payment is always done in June, and everybody looks forward to that in mid-June, and it's going to be raised from 1,400 Hector to 2,000 this year, which is again a nice tidy jump.
1450. 1450?
Yeah, 1450, thank you. Hector, okay. So completion of Exhibit G, and this is just a little more information. To receive the 2,000, every 301 eligible employee must complete and submit the student growth project. And that part happens with the principal through the True North Logic process. Payment is for this part is based on the amount of growth, only completion of the project. They complete it, they get the monies. If they see growth, great. If they don't see growth, it's a discussion that they have between their principal looking at what they need to do differently next year, but they receive that money for the work, because there's a lot of work that goes into what happens over the year. Comment?
Like Dr. Bergman stated, you do a pre-assessment first couple of weeks in August, and then what I do and what a lot of teachers do is you reassess every quarter. So you have 4 data points, basically, is what you end up having, so that you can reflect, and during the entire year, you can start making changes as you're going to see. If things are going great, you leave it, and if they're not, you start tweaking. Exhibit G is not only about student growth, but also about reflection on what you've done, what's worked, and what hasn't. So that's why some people wonder, well, why isn't it tied to growth? Because it's really about self-reflection and growth as a teacher, and moving forward with your students.
Dr. Berkman, if I could just interject for a second.
Yes.
In quality systems, one of the things that happens is anything measured improves. That's an axiom from the industry. So just to give kind of a flavor to it, by measuring it, just the fact that we're measuring it, we're looking at it, and we're evaluating it, overall the system improves. Individual classrooms may not improve that year, but overall it's an improvement for the whole system.
Exactly. And it really helps with the self-reflection process, as Ms. Fernandez said. Thinking about what you're doing and what you need to do differently with kids is a big step for teachers. Okay. Victor, can you move it? Okay, and then the remaining 30%. That's based on district growth. So every year from AC America, we get a district average, and we look at ELA and math. We're not looking at a percentage. We just look at the district growth in English language and or math, and the indication of growth or no growth, the amount of the growth. Teachers receive a payment in September, and this in 18-19 it will increase to 1,000. It was only 610, I believe, or
I know those
yeah.
numbers.
I should get them. I remember those. So that again is a nice increase for the teachers. And the new piece, and I'm going to let Lisa talk about this, the new piece that the committee asked to be put in is that it's a retention piece. It's there because they want people to stay with us. And so if we have teachers who are still with us, they will receive that 1,000 addendum in September. Want to share?
What the committee decided was, if you're here, it's about being dedicated to our students, to our district, to our sites. And that means you're staying here, you're with us for the long haul. And that should be shown appreciation. So if somebody comes in, they're 1 year, and they leave, you know, they haven't earned it, I guess is what we're saying. You know, because their data isn't in. We're looking at 2 data points here. So if they're only here 1 year, that's only one data point. So we're looking at, if you're here, we're gonna take care of you just, the way that we'd want to be taken care of.
Well, that's an important piece. That won't happen this year, it happens in 18-19, okay? All right. And then the voting, Dr. Favela does a beautiful job of putting
If you
together.
could pull up the
Yeah.
data.
A Survey Monkey went out.
If you could pull up the
Yeah.
data. And just to set this up is that we set it out through Survey Monkey, and the proposal is actually the bulk of what's on
Yeah.
that Survey Monkey, that people who vote need to read the proposal, and then there are questions that say, I verify that I'm 301 eligible, that's one. The second one says, what site are you
from?
at? Are you from? And then, yes, I am in favor, no, I am not in favor of the vote. And so, because we need to have 70%, we had a total of 447 people who voted, 410 of them voted in the affirmative. Anything, Lisa, that you wanted to add there in terms of how that was received and?
I think it went very smoothly. It was also, it was user-friendly. I think it was pretty easy to read.
How many went out? What's the total
They
number?
went out,
650 approximately.
650.
650. Because we only sent them to the certified individuals who qualify for the 309. I believe that's it.
So, and so it was 91%, so that is more than the required amount to, also, we're just gonna, if there are any questions for any of us, we're happy to.
Ms. Cotero?
So I have one quick question, so say I'm a teacher, I'm new, and my husband gets a job in Afghanistan, and I have to move, and I don't get my money, so, because I was only here for a year?
You wouldn't get, think about this, we're always looking at a year, a past year.
Past year.
Last year.
First year teachers don't have any data to look at.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay, so
they don't
they wouldn't
qualify.
qualify.
That's
That's
why,
the 2 data
that's
points.
the
Okay.
2 data points that you
So-
needed. So they typically don't get that September payment because they don't have any data to look at.
But that's only 1 out of 3 payments.
Yeah.
They can still earn the Exhibit G money, whether you stay in district or not, you're still qualified for that. And your label, meaning how you come out on your rubric, whether you're highly effective, or developing, you still qualify for those, whether you stay in district or not.
okay, but the other thing is, we really want them to stay in the district.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
if there
it's
are
like-
anomalies, or individual cases, like if someone's retiring, they've been
Yes.
here a long time and they're retiring, then those are things that are looked at individually. You don't necessarily have a big blanket sweep, but
Yeah.
that is the one change that I think the committee discussed, instead of saying you get your money no matter what, that you need to be present to win, as they say.
Right.
You
Oh,
know?
I like that.
I like that.
Maybe Germany.
Ms. Dawn?
Are you done?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was wondering, because there's no language in there that talks about the retirees. And if somebody, they've been here for 20 years.
30 years.
30
yeah.
years.
We would want them to receive that.
Yeah, and so you will put language in there to make sure that they,
Yes.
that
and
even
we
though
can
the
go back
language is not
and
in there
we can
right now.
clarify that.
The evaluation committee it is on our meeting notes that we did approve it for retirees. Retirees will get that September payment, which is district growth.
Mhm.
So it is in our committee meeting notes. I don't believe it made it to
The language.
the language
here,
there, but
yeah.
we
But
did
it's in.
approve it.
Yeah.
It was just people leaving for another position at another district, things of those
Well,
nature.
one of the things, like Ms. Quintero here was saying, but making the example a little bit different, somebody is deployed to Afghanistan, but the teacher's been here for 5 years. But the husband got deployed to Afghanistan and they have to move to Afghanistan. But because they're not here in August,
happen?
because they're
Spouse won't be going to Afghanistan.
They're, huh?
Wouldn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Or anybody
Whatever, I just-
that's using
Germany.
another.
Germany, yes.
Or anywhere else
Maybe
they wanna
Germany.
go. The person, the spouse gets a real good job somewhere. But you've been here for 5, 10 years, you've been a loyal employee, and you've been doing really well, and all of a sudden, you know, your family has to make this very difficult decision. But, you know, it might not even be a raise job, it might just be family, you know, family in Montana all of a sudden needs you. And so you have to go to that
And I
family.
think we can look at that as a case-by-case situation. Our teachers are very good at going to their supervisors and say, can this be looked at, please? Or taking it to a member on the evaluation committee and bringing it forward to the evaluation.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes, just a few more, a few more things. So that was just on that person leaving, you know, I felt uncomfortable, because a person that's been here for, you know, a while, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, 3 years. But that year, before they realized that they had to leave, they worked really hard, and they were a big part of the team that made sure those math and reading scores were done well. Then all of a sudden, you know, they're not able to get the money. But if there is language, hopefully, you know, that's all I'm saying, is that I would like for their,
It's like they have to be here this
You
year
have to
and
have
last
two
year.
data, they have to have 2 data points.
Yeah, so if they had to be.
It should be okay.
okay, so as long as there's language in there that doesn't penalize a person that suddenly has to leave even though they've been here for a little while and then they have to go. So that's one of the things. The other thing that made me a little bit on the nervous side in this little piece is that they're not gonna get their money until August. So, and the only reason for that is that, you know, why are we holding that money for them when, you know, in reality, it'd be nice if they got it in time to, you know, make some home repairs. You know, pay off a bill and not have to wait until that came in so that they would continue to pay interest. Go on a well-deserved vacation because they did so well and got that math score and that reading score. So, you know, I like all the work, I like the evaluations, I like the 301s. There are just a couple of things that, you know, I think we need to take a look at, which we have often in the past when there's been some things that you know, when we all get together as a group and we think about these things and it's like we think it's perfect, and then we realize, because a group comes to us and say, did you realize that because I was, you know, hired between, you know, 2013 and 2015 that I'm gonna be hurt by this? And we look at Hector, we go, is that correct? And then he starts, let me think about this, and then he goes, yeah, that is correct. So we've had to go back and take a look at some things. So that's just the reason that I want to bring some of these points up, is that, you know, did we 100% think about a couple of these little things? The person that leaves, you know, that has been working hard and worked hard all that year. And then also, why are we, you know, holding on to that money when a person could probably, I know it's probably good for the district, we're probably ourselves gaining, you know, some interest rate on that, but the teacher worked hard, and the teacher deserves to have that opportunity of getting that money instead of having to wait for that money. We're really good as a district, I feel, in giving them the monies, like just before the holidays in the winter break. You know, we make sure that we give that to them.
As a teacher, the biggest check is the one we get in mid-June. That's the big one.
Mhm.
And I like that it comes in the summer. It's kind of a nice little thing.
Right.
As far as the one that is in August and September, honestly, I like that it comes in August because that's about the time you're broke, because you just paid a lot of stuff for your new classroom. So it's kind of, and it's always on an off payday. All of these checks are on an
Right.
off payday, so I know that.
That always helps.
That also means that there's more work for the business office, but, as a teacher, we're kind of used to it. We've been doing these payments like this for, I don't know, for a couple of years now. So we're used to it, and it's kind of nice that it comes in when it does. And we don't want it all together because it gets taxed crazily.
Mhm.
So we don't, as teachers, we have talked about this also in the evaluation committee, we do not want it all together because it will get taxed. and it ends, we like it having 3 checks.
Withholding is less.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because I know that's not part of the question in there, you know, the question that we had, that we got such a good response from, and I'm glad that we got that good response from, is basically, you know, here are the 301s, this is, you know, we'd like to, they're gonna get extra money. I'm sure everybody was really happy,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
yeah.
want the extra money.
Yes.
But the question about whether or not they wanted the district to hold on to their money was not one, you know, part of the question.
And we can go back to the evaluation committee and talk about it. We have ways, we do the survey, we do the Google surveys with them, and that's something we can do at the beginning of the year and get some feedback from them and ask them how they'd like to move forward with that.
So is that a possibility, that, because I like the, you know, I like the proposal. I think it was a good proposal, and I like, you know, the money, I like the amount of money that's being given. And so is it possible to go ahead and approve this under the contingency that we'll be having one more monkey? Survey monkey out there, not a Google monkey, but a survey monkey out there asking about that one, you know, particular thing. Is that a possibility?
Clarify the one particular thing you're talking about.
That we're okay with the money parts, you know, the amount of money that's gonna be given. So the survey monkey would ask them, do you want to have your monies distributed a certain way? The distribution of the money. And that would be just on the,
So do we want to vote on these 2 different items then?
well, the way it could be worded is that the proposal that is submitted, that I recommend the movement of the proposal as submitted with direction to give one more survey monkey asking about the distribution of the funds. And that way it would be just one motion.
I don't think I can support that. Though. Is that a motion?
You want it?
Mr. Holmes, do you want?
Can I just clarify something? I mean, I think what I would prefer if we have a concern is that particular section go back to the committee to think about what process they will use to get the information. I worry a survey monkey at this time, because they're gonna have to reconvene and school's already out, and I just don't think sending something out will result in some I think they could probably come up with, because I have 2 points on that. One is,
Okay.
I think the process by which there's a case by case, I would like to know, what does that appeal process look like? So that there's language, so if in case I go to Germany, right?
You're not going to advance.
So what's the case by case process? So who does it go? I don't like it to be loose in terms of people going to all these people choose. So I think
Right.
what I would prefer is the committee create a process for those individual one-offs
Yes.
that would allow people to get paid that additional $1,000 independent of the timing. So so that's one piece, right?
Right.
One is
I like
not
that.
necessarily the timing of when you get the check, but what's the process for those individuals
Those
that would be
individual cases.
approved, just like retirement, and what does that look like? And let the committee determine what that process would look like.
Put the language in there.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that if that's okay, I would love for that just to be something they go back and do. In terms of the payment thing, the complexity of that is kind of twofold. So that's why, because we're at the end of the year, I worry that a survey monkey won't give us the data that we need right away. What we could do is just, maybe when we come back, because this is really for the next year.
Yeah.
When we come back, look at kind of ways, the reason why it's been delayed, just so everyone's understanding, is that when AZ Merit came in, we were getting those scores so late, right? So that was kind of, why it's been like that for the last few years and people got accustomed to is that we're getting scores, like they were norming, like in late August, and remember all the labels? So
Right, I
now,
remember.
we're starting getting early, so now, I think there's a way in which we could look at the distribution of their payment, but I think, that's another one I'd like the committee to go back and determine
Look
which
at
way
it.
they would
Okay.
go back and survey versus locking us into a survey monkey when they may have a better process that they can bring
Ms.
forward.
Strong, maybe,
I like
you know,
that.
to address your concerns, which are all good questions, they're excellent questions you posed, that if you were to approve the proposal and then an amendment, you know, be submitted
Yeah,
with
because we've done that in the
clarification
past, like I said, we found out.
Right,
Yeah.
on clarifications on
Right.
what needed to, that would address some of the concerns, which wouldn't take
Delay.
away from the proposal being approved, that
Right.
there are just clarifications that need to be
Which has happened in the past, I talked to him, I said that
Yeah.
before, that when we've gone back in the past and seen that, oops, there was a little problem here, or a little problem there, we fixed the
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
make sure that everybody, that was affected negatively wasn't affected.
Go back.
very doable.
Roll it back.
Does that help, Ms. Dong? Does that
Yes,
make it, I think this way we'll allow them to figure out what that process
Yeah,
will look
I
like.
especially like the fact about the language, there's nothing in there about retirees
Yeah.
and,
So build the criteria.
individual cases and stuff like that.
Good.
All right, do you want to restate your motion, Ms. Snow?
I think I was just giving an example of the motion, I don't think I gave
Okay,
it,
all right.
but I'll go ahead and do the motion. I move that we approve the Class Site Fund 301 proposal as submitted at this time.
Second.
Put that in there.
Ms.
No.
Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work on that. Next, we have a request for executive session.
6. But we can recess.
Is that
Oh,
up till?
Yeah,
You
let's
wanna-
recess.
You want to recess and come back
Yes.
after graduation?
Yes.
What do you think, Mr. Brown? That would work.
I think it's probably a good idea.
Okay.
I don't want to be late for the graduation.
Okay.
So let's call recess until graduation is complete, and then come back and resume that executive session.
Perfect. And come back here.
Everyone is welcome to join us at graduation.
Yes, I'll be here.
Sarah will be here.
So just want to make sure. So we can, the process piece, we can go back. So
Evaluation
so there's one-offs, there's no ones that's going to you or going to head
We've returned from executive session. Ms. Quintero, you have a motion.
I do. I'd like to recommend to approve the appointment of Angelica Encinas, Assistant Principal at Desert View High School for the 2018-2019 school year, and be placed on step 3.
Second.
Second.
Oh, Robert, second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes. Do you have another motion?
I'd like to approve the, for the board to approve the appointment of Stephanie Ponce, Assistant Principal at Sunnyside High School for the 2018-2019 school year, and be placed on step 8.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Do you have another motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. So, recommend the board to approve the transfer of Eric Kirkendall to Gallego Intermediate Assistant Principal position for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. And Ms. Quintero, do you have another motion?
As a matter of fact, I do. Like, so, I will recommend, we recommend the board to approve the appointment of John Schubel, Assistant Principal at Sunnyside High, Desert View High, at Sunnyside High School for the 2018-2019 school year, and be placed on step 1.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes.
I am done.
Mr. Holmes, would you like to introduce any of
Sure.
the...
Absolutely. Ms. Encinas, would you like to please introduce? Okay, and Ms. Ponce? Ms. Ponce. Thank you. Those are all the candidates that are here. Let's see.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you.
Do we have any suggestions for future agenda items?
Oh,
Yeah, not to
just remember.
give him a graduation.
I know that this full year we have been kind of just checking to see how our surveys, employee survey was going in the HR, and then from there we're going to go through the rest of the school year. And so I'd like to have that as one of our next agenda items so that we can see how we're going to distribute it next year to the rest of the school district.
Perfect, perfect.
Is that a climate survey?
No, it's a survey.
No,
Oh, that
And then we go-
survey?
yeah.
Okay.
And just for discussion, Mr. Crouch, I will also, that will be included also in our discussion with my goals.
Okay.
So it'd be actually lined perfect, because that was something that we discussed. So on the next board meeting, it'll be in the context of both my evaluation, but also I think in the next steps. 'Cause I think we still have a lot of work to, kind of how we think about rolling that out.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other suggestions for future agenda items? And we have no unfinished business.
Mr. Crouch,
Ms. Dawn,
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much.